and have an open door policy and offer to fill a need to anyone that might need it, no questions asked. They are truly inspirational volunteers and are an amazing representation of what the community of Escalon is all about, with their caring and generous spirit. And so we have a stack here
A few.
of Citizens of the Month for this
Awesome.
month of December. Sure. And they were all notified to be here, and so anybody who is not here, we will make sure that they either get their certificates or we'll follow up and make sure.
We will.
another shining example of what sets Escalon apart from a lot of communities. So again, hats off to everybody here, please. All right, next up is our consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration. Is there anything here at the council level we need to pull from the consent calendar for consideration?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull items number 2 and 4.
Was there anything in the audience here in chambers that anybody had anything they might want to pull for further discussion on the consent calendar? All right, we'll bring it back. We can take a motion for the other items at this point.
I'll make a motion for 1 and 3.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Item number 2, Councilman Stroman.
Real simple, I wish to vote no on check number 079902. That's it for item number 2. And then for item number 4, just have a quick question for staff. I think all 5 of us would agree that we really appreciate the hard work that Andy Heath put in for the budget, and getting us there when Peep left. But my only question for staff is, did we need to issue this as an RFP?
For professional services agreement in accordance with our purchasing policy, professional service agreements under 50,000 don't need an RFP, but over 50,000 just need council approval. But there is no indication that it has to go out for RFP because it's a professional services agreement.
Okay. Had a question because.
And we did end up starting it in a rush because
Right.
it was right in budget, and so we needed to grab somebody right away, and he'll be essentially continuing what we're working on through the rest of the fiscal year. And then at that time, if the council is interested and wants me to do an RFP for this type of service, I'd be more than happy to do that if you at least let me know by March, February.
Well, like I said, I don't think any of us are complaining
Yeah.
of the hard work that Andy put into it. I mean, for the first time ever, our residents can actually look at a budget chart and see, okay, the numbers make sense. I just want to make sure legally, though, we didn't have to issue an RFP, so nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, then,
I have an item for number 4
Sure.
as well. Can we pull up the agreement, please? A little bit more to where it breaks down what he's been paid to date and what the balance of that agreement is.
What he's been paid to date, I think, is on the staff report itself.
Pardon?
I think what he's been paid to date is on the staff report itself.
Oh, there it is. It's right
Yeah.
there. So I just have a concern. Right there, it says that the finance director, HR administrator's base salary is $110,610. We're entering into an annual agreement with Andy for $85,000. So what does that come out to, like 75%, something like that, of that salary?
That was salary.
For the year. So aside from the budget that he's working on, is he addressing all of the other duties and responsibilities of the position for finance director / HR administrator?
Not HR administrator, no. I'm for the most part handling the HR component. He is substituting as financial consultant,
Okay.
which includes audit, mid-year budget, and our upcoming budget. And so he'll be utilizing more hours, working towards putting together this next budget for the new budget year, as well as handling all of or most of the reporting we have to do to the state for terms of different types or pots of money that we need to report to the state for.
So just for me, in terms of percentage, what percentage of the finance director, HR administrator's job is Andy going to be doing?
I'd want to say, aside from the HR, I would say probably around 65%.
So that's a bit where I have a problem. What are we doing as a city to actively hire for that position? Is it out for recruitment?
It is, it has been, it expired recruitment, I believe, a month or so ago. We put it back out. It's published on the Modesto Bee. The Modesto Bee has relationships with numerous online websites. I also have a listserv that I use with other cities, and a lot of other cities do post jobs for other cities, for people looking to promote or move up outside of the agency. And to date, I have received one application, but they did not have very much of a finance background.
When it was expired, roughly how long did it stay expired before we relisted?
Maybe 2 weeks, and then it got reissued for twice as long. So it's not going to expire until December 11th.
I'll just put this out there. From my seat, I can't support the agreement, hearing that he'll be doing 60% of the work for 70% of the salary. We're missing the components of actually having a person in-house, which is team development, getting to work with yourself, with Jalen, with the rest of the team, right? The bonding that happens within that team. Personally, I can't support that, and I would ask that we more aggressively recruit for that position. I mean, LinkedIn, Indeed, all the major components, right? I think that advertising in the newspaper is fairly antiquated, as well as, you know, they may have resources that are online, but I think a person with the level of experience and a director level title requires a higher level of recruitment, and I think you'll have better luck. But I mean, with that said, I just can't support that. I would ask, is there a way that we can individually get billed for each of those services you say that he's providing? So one for, let's say he's working on budget and that's a flat rate, and another if he's working on
Yeah, he has an hourly rate. I can ask him to break it out more detailed, sure.
I'm not sure that we're really upside down on the math with the 60, 70%. The 110 for the base salary doesn't include the benefits. We're not paying him benefits.
No.
So there's
no,
another
it's just a
good 30%
fully loaded.
cost based on top of that is being expended as soon as we hire somebody. So I don't think we're necessarily paying more than what we're getting out of him at the point, in my opinion.
And I totaled it up to $85,000 because I wasn't sure how much was going to be needed. And I didn't want to have to come back to council in the middle of a cycle, in the middle of trying to get something done, to ask for more money. Andy is aware that we're not looking to spend that much money. He does think that we're going to be well below the $85,000 for the total year. But I did that because I'm not sure what other items are going to pop up that may need to be addressed and/or addressed, quickly, in terms of things that come from the state and that type of stuff. And so I just wanted to be Well,
that makes it even harder for me to support that we're.
So if you want to
kind of
lower
offering
that
a
amount
blank
too,
check
that's
there.
fine as well. Or I could come back.
Yeah, something quarterly. I would hope that we could fill that position rather quickly, and then that would be offset towards our actual budget.
As soon as we fill the contract, we're cutting him off, right? This isn't just a perpetual thing for him. Once we get a replacement for the
Yeah, I mean,
finance
depending on
director,
how much experience that person has.
there'll be some time for a
When he
trade-off.
had come aboard, our past director had indicated that it would have been nice to have somebody like him around as a mentor. So I kind of would be looking to try to keep him on for at least a month or maybe two at the same time, to at least provide some guidance on areas that maybe that person needs some guidance on.
As you know, Dominique, I didn't receive the agenda per email this morning, so I didn't get a chance to fully read the contract. But just reading this first page, it would imply that this is a contract for the fiscal year 23-24, totaling $85,000. So contractually, unless it's somewhere in there stated that there's a deduction for that amount, regardless of the amount of work that he did or did not do for us, budget that was or was not completed, we're on the hook for $85,000. Is that correct?
Let me try to clarify. I think It's just a professional services agreement on a time and materials basis and an amount not to exceed 85K. So he would be invoicing on an hourly basis with actual descriptions of what he's doing.
Can we see that in the contract?
So, let's see here, compensation.
I know that his hourly rate was in the contract.
So it's written up, in no event shall the total amount paid for services rendered by consultant under this agreement exceed the sum of $85,000, which is on page 42 of the agreement. If you would like me to update that language, I'm sure Frank and I can make a change to that section, if that makes it more.
I see that. That's all I'm looking at. Yeah, I mean, the way I read the contract, 3.2.1 says he'll be paid for services in accordance with Exhibit B. Exhibit B has the hourly rate, and the contract is a not to exceed amount of 85,000. So he,
Can we see Section B or Exhibit B?
It's page 55.
55. 165 an hour.
and you'll notice the scope of work says, and other financial assistance as needed or requested by the city council and or city manager. So the thought is, because it's a fluid situation with service like this, he'll bill at 165. There was added whatever, there was added about 50,000 to whatever he's charged already for additional services. So it's possible it would be less than 85. I mean, obviously I have no idea, but
Well, that would be the max, and with all due respect, as you said, you know, it's fluid, right? It's liquid. How much control do we have over that? I mean, when somebody's in the office, we have control over how much time they're in the office, right?
Yeah, he's mostly remote, and majority of the items he's working on right now are related to either preparing for mid-year budget, working towards the audit, and right now, because we're at the end of the calendar year, we're coming up on multiple reports due to the state on a lot of pots of money that we have, and so he's handling reports due to the state controller's office. He's worked on at least 2 of them this month, and then we'll have some that'll be due the end of January. But the main, the documents that I have him fixated on at this point are mid-year budget, audit, completion of the audit, mid-year budget, and the new audit, which includes, he is in contact with us as staff, managers, working on like CIP and things like that to get situated for the new fiscal year as well as for mid-year budget.
May I ask, is he working on the past audit as well as the current audit?
Currently, right now, he did indicate that he is inputting information into our system that will be used in the new audit. But he is also working on the audit draft.
21-22 audit?
21-22.
And then he'll be working on the 22-23 audit as well?
Correct. He's inputting information over the last few weeks into our system to help with the new audit. Yes.
Hey, Frank, did you happen to see where that reference to time and materials basis was listed?
yeah, it's 3.2, last sentence says periodic payments shall be made within 30 days of receipt of an invoice, which includes a detailed description of the work performed. So that invoice is going to be basically a description of whatever work units he performs in that month at the hourly rate.
You said 3.22?
Yes, last sentence.
Pretty open contract, man. I mean, a detailed description of work performed, it doesn't, there's no verbiage for detailed description of time spent. He can say, yeah, I worked on the audit, I worked on the 21-22 audit, I worked some on the 2023 audit, that was 75 hours. That's, and I expressed my concern. I can't approve it the way that it's written, but I'm just one person. There's 4 other people up here.
How would you want to see it worded?
I would rather see all of those items that he's working on, either with a flat fee to produce those documents, or a billing per item. So if he's working on the 21-22 audit, that it's either he's offering to perform that work for X price, and we accept that, or he's proposing that he will complete this work in approximately X amount of hours at $165 an hour, not to exceed his expected expenditure for each one of those items. To me, it's just like a blank check that we're giving him for a position that we need filled.
Well,
It's just my opinion.
the pros I see to him is he's a top tier, we're talking about a top tier accountant. We're not talking about, a level B guy here.
No, I agree. He was quality. He did a great job. I don't question his work at all. I'm
But
questioning
this-
the contract.
I totally get it, but I guess what I'm getting at is, when you look at that, you look at the fact that we're not paying any benefits, we're talking about a short-term contract, I feel pretty comfortable, but if you wanted to add some verbiage that you felt like needed to be there, I'm not against that.
Appreciate that.
May I ask a question? So if he fails to perform, such as the 21-22 audit does not get complete, or our budget does not get complete in June, is this something that we can cut this agreement with at that point? Because I'm tending to want to go quarterly as well, just so that we do make sure that he performs these important tasks on time.
So there is a termination clause in this, and the city reserves the right to suspend or abandon at any time, and if for any reason, all or any portion of this agreement and the work thereon, or to terminate this agreement at any time with or without cause. Consultant shall be provided at least 7 days advance written notice of such suspension, abandonment, or termination. And then consultant would be paid for services and reimbursable expenses rendered up to the date of such termination pursuant to the schedule of payments in the agreement, less any claims against damages suffered. So basically a 7-day notice with or without the cause.
So while I understand what Councilmember Engel is referring to about a line item scope of services, in my professional career, I live and die off of professional services agreements. My only concern about if we get into those specific line items, if something comes up and he's going over on one item, but he's lower on another item, then you're going to have to bring a contract amendment back to council to basically trade monies between those pots, those different pots. Whereas this contract is basically saying $85,000, we fully expect you to complete everything from now till June 30, 2024. You know what you have to do, go do it, then come back, and don't come back.
I see that they're asking for that, but I don't see anywhere there's a clause that says it requires those items to be completed. Andy was a great guy. He did a great job. I'm not trying to take anything from him. He did a great thing for us, provided a solid document. But there's nothing in our contract that says he has to complete any of that.
I don't think you'll get that from anybody who's a consultant. So I can guarantee, and if you want to do pricing per item, like you want the budget and audit at a certain price, it's going to cost us more.
I think that's a great reason to just not cut an $85,000 blank check and say, run it up to that, and then we'll talk again. It's
So-
just my opinion.
So I pulled up his last invoice to take a look at it. It is pretty detailed, and so he does talk about 23-24 budget preparation assistance, reviewing notes to load budget for 22-23. And then he talks about audit preparation, and he goes in detail, reviews these needs, determines needs to complete audit, reviews GASB 34, work on draft MD&A, begin preparation of audit schedules for 22-23, Closeout Tyler, which is our software, like he lists things, and then at the bottom, he gives a section on other financial assistance that he's taking care of. Discussion regarding IRMA rebate review. IRMA's our risk management authority. Review budget reports, review property taxes and water and sewer projects, police reserves, and then calls with staff regarding transportation and CIP projects and funding availabilities, and then phone calls. So he does give a listing and then the number of hours, which the last billing was 22 hours. So his billing came out to roughly $3,700.
So Councilmember Engel, if Dominique were to add those specific line items within Appendix B, would that suffice for you?
With a quarterly review? I would say yes. I think my bigger concern is taking that money, doing a higher level of recruitment and filling that position permanently rather than depending on a consultant.
What are we doing?
Yes, as far as the contract is concerned with him, yes, it would meet what I'm thinking I'm asking for.
Councilman.
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking for at this point. I need clarification there.
What am I asking for?
What are you asking to add to the contract? I'm confused at this point.
So the way that I see the contract now, and I'm not a contract lawyer, so is that ultimately all of that work could be done. There's no guarantee of completion. There's no timeline. It just says, back up at the top page. Can you go back up there? $42.
I don't believe there's going to be no more guarantee that he can perform this any more than our own employee. If they don't perform, you fire them. It's the same if we hire a finance director and they fail and they don't get the work done, they get fired. I'm not sure you're going to get a guarantee in an employment contract for a consultant job myself. I don't think that's possible.
So looking at that, what would make me more comfortable is not offering a lump sum of $85,000 for total compensation, and
It's not what's happening though.
So not to exceed.
That's a not to exceed
Yeah,
dollar.
It's
at
gonna
the
be billed
ones-
on a time and materials, so to speak, basis.
up to $85,000.
Up to 85,
Up to
correct.
$85,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
So at that point, that
If it gets to
it would go back to be
85,001.
renegotiated, there would be another contract. I get that part. But right now, we're saying that's up to $85,000. You can run that up to $85,000 and we're not gonna say anything about it. To me, I think that's too much money. I see that up there, that there's $110,000, yes, plus benefits. I get that that's more and that's an expense, but we're spending 70% of somebody's salary, less benefits, to pay a consultant who's not gonna do all of the work, who's not gonna build with the team, who's not gonna understand our internal workings, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And that $85,000 is it's a big number. If we were to bring that down and do it quarterly and divide that up, if he's done $35,000 over the last quarter, then we say $35,000 for the next quarter, right? And then we can review it again. But just to leave that out there to say you can run our bill up to $85,000 before we question it again, I have a problem with that.
But that's the purpose of looking at the register of demands. That's going to be included in there as a bill, and we can always pull that, similar to what we do with Blackwater and Ardura and BBK.
And the same with them. We ask for quarterly reports. So why wouldn't we just have a quarterly agreement and get a quarterly report and then renew?
I mean, the staff is reviewing the invoices before we pay them. There's a review, and obviously, I would expect the city manager to be going, is this what I expect for the hours they've worked and what we've done? Very aware of the communication that's gone on with staff.
So you think?
I don't think we're
like a
beating this
quarter-
horse, honestly.
I mean, that's.
Do you want to
like a-
lower the amount? That
like a-
way,
like a
it gets to a
quarterly
certain
maximum?
threshold, they just come back and bring it that way.
I
What's an
think-
That
85?
sounds to me like that would be like the easiest, is dropping the amount down.
Well,
And
he,
then-
maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe it can be remedied with a quarterly maximum, like 85 total.
We've already spent 30-something of the 85. We're talking, what, $52,000 at this
Yeah.
point? That's what the contract is. We've already spent 30-something.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with the quarterly aspect of it, only because of the fact of, as we get closer to June 30 and he's preparing next year's budget, there's going to be more time going into that to prepare the budget than what he's doing right now and trying to find a way for us to capitalize on the funds that we have. So I don't necessarily think the quarterly check-in, I mean, if we get a report from him quarterly, would that suffice for you, Councilman Engel?
And here's where we are. It's going back and forth. I stated my thought on it. If somebody wants to motion on it, motion on it.
It sounds
Wanna
like
approve
he's,
it?
right,
Approve it.
he's monthly
voting on it.
invoicing us, correct? I mean, we are seeing the breakdown monthly of what the
Correct.
services that are being performed.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 2 with my exemption of check number 079902 and number 4 for the consent calendar with the addition of the tasks that the city manager listed be added to Appendix B.
I'm sorry, I need to ask a question. The task he added to, the task that she read was just an example of one invoice.
Okay,
So those tasks will change month to month, and I don't think that was an exclusive list either.
oh, okay.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the scope of work that's in Exhibit A and B, it's budget, fiscal year budget preparation, annual audit and TDA audit, and then other financial assistance. I mean, I could specify mid-year budget in there. I can update that to say mid-year budget.
I think we just want to see a list of items that we would normally expect a finance manager to perform.
Okay. Which he typically does provide in his invoice. He lists out everything that he works on in there.
Not to exceed, though.
And under 3.2.2, if we could add the terms not to exceed $85,000, because right now it just says, I don't know, there's
No,
legalese
it does
in
say,
there.
no event shall the total exceed
It says in percent, yeah.
$85,000. It's just in the recommendation, it's, it just says for a total, so.
Frank, do I need to repeat my motion?
Yes, please.
I would like to motion to approve item number 2 in the consent calendar with me voting no on check number 079902. And I would like to approve item number 4 with an expanded scope of service from staff with line items listed.
That work for a motion for you? Okay. Motion on the floor, do we have a second? I will second that motion. So we have a motion and a second. All those in
Wait, Does
favor?
the motion vote to approve item number 2 as
Yes.
said, or as said with the,
Item number 2 is going to be
With the
approved with him
additions.
just saying no to one check.
for him saying no
Correct.
for
One
us?
check, and all the rest of you are fine. He's just saying
understand.
no to that
It's really
check
just
number.
for the record.
I
because
understand,
You have to pass item 2,
I understand,
yeah.
yes, okay.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carries 4-1. Moving on to staff communications and updates. Item 5, animal shelter report for October.
Thank you. This item did not make the agenda for last meeting, and so we're providing that to you now for the month of October. And also, Chief Flores is obviously not in attendance here, so we have Sergeant Hargraves here. He'll be out of the office until the 18th, so we'll be looking forward to his return then. And in the meanwhile, if you have anything related to the police department, if you could go ahead and reach out to me, and then I can work with Sergeant Hargraves on anything related to that. And then was there any questions on the animal shelter report? No? Okay, and then we'll go down the line here. Director French, do you have any updates?
Have no updates for this meeting.
Thank you. Sergeant Hargraves, do you have any updates for the police department?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Public Works Superintendent Collins, do you have any updates for?
Yes, I do have a few. First, I just want to update council. I feel like the last 6-7 months, we've been having requests for swings at Latta Park, and it's been an issue getting parts, but everything finally came in today, so we'll get that established here this week. So we'll get Latta Park with the pickleball court painted and the swings installed there, so hopefully that'll be good to go. I apologize
that
for
part
the
of
amount of
town.
time,
Great.
but things are taking forever. And McDonald's seems to be going fairly well. Some people could see today the pavement was going down in the parking lot and everything. They will be calling for inspections this week. The hope is we're gonna have a soft start on Saturday for opening. As long as everything goes well on soft start, come this Sunday, McDonald's will be open, ready to go for the community. So looking forward to that. So as long as everything goes smooth this week, which I foresee it going, it's been a pretty smooth construction job, other than, you know, some of the cleanliness and the noise, but other than that, it's been going fairly good, and hopefully we'll have another restaurant here to go to fairly soon. Also, Christmas on Main turned out great. I mean, it was fascinating to see the amount of people that was out there on Saturday. The weather was great, and I just want to thank the whole community for coming out and showing up. It was a good time for everybody, so.
I'm just wondering who picked the grand marshals, because
Some of the smartest people I could tell you. I mean, that's all I know.
those guys on the back of the public works truck were causing all kinds of problems.
That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few updates as well. Tree lighting ceremony that took place on November 28th. I think that's the largest attendance we've had in the last several years. And everybody was there early. 5 o'clock, it didn't start till 5:30, and the seats were almost full. Made me a little nervous because I wasn't 100% finished setting up yet, and so I didn't want to be caught setting up, but I was. But it was a really great event. The tree that's out there was beautiful. It just went really, really well, and it wasn't too cold, and I enjoy going to that event because we put out the hot chocolate for all the kids, and they go crazy over that and marshmallows, and so it was a really good event. Regarding, let's see, regarding the RFP item, back in October, we had an item related to information technology, or IT. We had done an informal process, informal RFP, and at that time, it had come up to go ahead and basically start the process over and do it a little bit more formal. At that time, our consultant, which is Mid-Valley IT, you know, due to the situation that was occurring at the meeting, we went ahead and reached out to a couple other companies to basically provide quotes on providing that RFP service. We've only received one quote in this far, but it's close to $6,000 just to draft the RFP for the process. I just wanted to keep you in the loop with that moving forward. And as we move forward with that item, I'll just want to get a head nod on that to make sure that that's okay with council to spend that type of money on drafting that RFP. It is more specialized in the aspect that the process itself has already been in question, and so we want to make sure that if we do it this way, it's done 100% correctly, so that there is no question moving forward. And so if that's the case and council still feels that way, we would move forward with this item, no questions asked, but I just want to keep you in the loop that that's the cost, the first cost we've received thus far.
So on that item, has Cullen just completely excused himself from the conversation, and is this $6,000 going to be reviewing the RFP independently?
This is establishing the RFP, drafting the RFP so that companies could submit in accordance with the RFP. And Mid-Valley IT were the ones that, they are our consultant, they are who we pay for that service that would typically be included in our services with them. But given the circumstance that this item came forward on, it was questioned, and we want to make sure it's done correctly. And so I've made that decision to remove them from the process to make sure that it doesn't affect the future moving forward.
So who will be
So I
scoring?
have removed Mid-Valley from that and looking towards hiring somebody else to do that.
Who will be scoring the RFP?
So at that point, I'll probably have to reach out to other neighboring agencies and/or other experienced people and put together some type of panel. It won't be anybody from Mid-Valley or our consultant, because they are consultant. We want to keep them completely out of the process. That way there's nothing.
So for clarity, you're trying to create an unbiased,
Correct.
basically, approach.
Yeah, and I mean, if you recall that meeting, it seemed like there was some
Yeah.
friction going on there. I want to try to avoid that friction as much as possible and make sure that things move forward correctly. And I feel personally that the only way we could do that in the best interest of the city is to start it all over and start it all over with a new set of hands, clean slate. So I just wanted to let you know that that's roughly probably what it's going to end up costing, and I just want to make sure that you're aware of that as we move forward.
We got one person so far that's submitted a bid to possibly do that for us,
So far.
so far.
Correct.
Okay.
That's specialized, it is a specialized area, and I think both of those companies indicated that this type of technology is more specialized. And they felt like maybe our consultant didn't have that specialized background. And so that was brought up, and so we did locate one that would be able to provide that type of,
So when does that quote window close?
they usually give us about 60 days.
Okay, so we have some time before.
Yeah, so, and I'm gonna wait, a few more weeks, and then if not, we'll probably just need to move forward, because we do need the services out there. Our internet connection for Public Works is questionable right now. It's has good days, but it also has bad days, and this project would really help us get everything moving out there, so that they can have some stability on the internet out there. Okay, so I just wanted to keep you on the loop of that. And then regarding item number 8, there was an error in the staff report, which was addressed. I provided each of you guys a copy, and then I do have some copies up here at the front if anybody wanted an updated version of that staff report. The area that was updated was highlighted in yellow, just so you are aware. And that's all I have.
Next up, matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it is not required. Due to state law, action will be taken on an item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. And at this point, we'll open it up to the folks here in the chambers if they wanted to come up and speak to the council.
Brett Taylor, and I live at 2030 California Street here in Escalon. And I've never been here before, never done this. We have an issue with speeders on our street. It's become dangerous. We were hoping to get a stop sign installed at the corner of California and Mitchell Avenue.
I'm going to ask you to hold off on this because that's an item that's actually on our agenda
Oh,
later on item 8. So at that time, you can come up when we're talking about that item.
I'm a beginner.
That's okay, not a problem at all.
Thank you.
No problem at all.
Hi, my name's
Evening.
Sharon Vaughn. And in October, we received a letter from the city request for proposal to lease your city property that butts up next to us on Arthur Road. That orchard is dead. There's no way that we would be interested in leasing it. And we received a letter from, a call from our Blue Diamond rep in August, just before our harvest started. She was calling all members who are farming next to abandoned orchards and letting them know that April orangeworm damage was running extremely high due to being next to these dirty orchards. She was correct. Our reject numbers were the highest they've ever been. We met with our Blue Diamond rep on November 6th and went over all our numbers for our crop. Our rep had a chart that Blue Diamond uses to figure losses due to rejects. We've never had rejects above 1%. 0.09 was the highest we've ever had. We were 3% this year. Last year, we had started climbing 1.7. Between what we lost in rejects and bonuses, pounds lost, the total came to $18,200 is what our damage was. With historic low prices for the crop, that money sure could have been used. It would have covered our bee rental, which cost us $13,000. Orchard sanitation is extremely important to battle now navel orangeworm. We can follow all the guidelines possible, But if we are next to an orchard where nothing is being done, then then our time and money is wasted. Our Blue Diamond rep informed us that Blue Diamond is in the beginning stage of contacting the ag commissioners in every county to see if there's anything that they can do about these abandoned orchards, because they're also being impacted by these dirty orchards and pounds of almonds they've lost, which is costing the co-op. We can't afford to lose this again. I've printed up an information sheet for you which shows what has to be done to orchards to keep this under control and from traveling to neighboring orchards. And you haven't done anything to your orchard for quite a few years. There's government programs out there right now, and my husband, John, would know more about this, but you could have that orchard pushed out, cleaned up for almost nothing. I don't know if you're looking to do that or what you're looking at, but we just can't go on another loss like this. We're doing all that we can on our side to keep our property clean and our orchard clean to get this navel orange worm under control. But if we're up next to you when nothing's being done to take care of it, it's a lost cause. If we go above 3%, then we've lost almost half. And we can't do that. So I don't know, is there anybody that's come, with this letter saying that you want to lease it out? Has anybody offered to come and take this up, to clean this place up?
We're still in the open RFP process
We
currently.
are, correct.
Yeah. We're currently in the open RFP process.
Well, I want to leave this to you to show you what needs to be done to an orchard to prevent this from, your orchard's just full of it. Every mummy nut has that navel orange worm in it. Every year, almonds get on your trees again, those stick on there, they get infested. It's just horrible. So, I don't know. You're gonna have to do something, because either that or our rep's gonna be in contact with us to let us know what the ag commissioners are gonna be doing. So she's gonna keep us, but I don't know. You're hearing from me now. You might have an ag commissioner coming to talk to you if nothing's cleaned up about this or something's done. And if we go through another loss like this next year, we'll have to bring somebody in.
You could leave that with our Public Works. That would be appreciated.
Give that to you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Can I get a copy of that at some point, Justin?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome, thank you.
I'll put one in each one of your boxes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Love that, thank you.
All right, anybody else would like the podium at this time? At this point, we will close matters presented from the audience. Move on to public hearing, item number 6. Consider resolution XX23 adopting the 2024 fee schedule as conservation as adjusted pursuant to the financial analyst model for San Joaquin County Multi-Species Habitat Conservation and Open Space Plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Jalen French. So the item before you is consideration of a fee update for 2024 for the San Joaquin County Multi-Species Habitat Conservation and Open Space Plan. The city of Escalon has been a partner in this plan with SJCOG, San Joaquin Council of Governments, as well as the other cities and the county in Stanislaus County since 2001. Annually since then, we have brought forward a renewed and updated fee that has been provided by SJCOG. A little background, the purpose of the plan is to mitigate the loss of habitat and open space land by way of development. So this is a fee on new development to ensure that loss of habitat land and open space is mitigated. Annually, SJCOG does an analysis of the fee to determine next year's fee. They have a 5-year report analysis that they base each annual fee analysis on. The 5-year report was completed in 2020. So there are 4 total fees that this plan covers. 3 of the 4 fees have actually gone down in the per acre cost. The 2 most commonly used are about 7% down from the prior year. So with that, be happy to answer any questions that the council or the public may have, but that is the item in front of you for your consideration.
Mr. French? So these are fees that are assessed to landowners? Is that correct?
Developers, not necessarily the landowner.
Okay. So the folks that just spoke that currently have the orchard, this does not apply to them?
No.
This would be applied to any future development?
Development, correct.
Any other questions here at the council level? How about anybody out in the audience here in the chambers?
Good evening, council. I'll just keep this brief. My name is Tom Terpstra. I work with New Miller and Beardsley, a law firm in Stockton. We're general counsel to SJCOG. Just wanted to make myself known and available to you if you had any other questions about the plan, but it doesn't sound like there are many, so I will keep it brief. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
As you know, this comes up every couple of years. What these fees are is they're, instead of going to the state and getting individual permits, which takes a lot of time and a lot of money, this fee paid to SJCOG is one-stop shopping. It's cheaper. And it works real well for the developer, and it's a lot easier.
Any other questions? If not, look for a motion to adopt the resolution.
Can we scroll up so we can see the verbiage? I motion to adopt resolution XX23 adopting the 2024 San Joaquin County Multi-Species Habitat Conservation and Open Space Plan development fee schedule as adjusted pursuant to the 2020 SJMSCP 5-year financial model updates.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. All right. Next up, administrative matters. Item number 7, agenda request from Mr. Fowler.
Yes, so this item was asked to be put on the agenda. I did reach out to him last meeting, and he had confirmed to go ahead and put it on this meeting, but I do not see him in the audience. So if council wants to discuss this item without him, we could go ahead and do so, or if you would like, we could continue this item to the next meeting.
So what does our agenda look like on the next meeting? I don't want to overload.
I don't anticipate a ton of items on there, but the big item should be the audit.
Feelings here at the level?
I think we should give Mr. Fowler his due process and have him explain to us what his issue is.
Want me to just follow up with him and confirm another date for this to be brought back again?
Yeah.
Okay, will do.
The lawyer in me just has to say something. Just, and I know you meant due process in a generic sense, but just to be clear, there's no due process rights to, I mean, due process is when you may have a permit taken away or you're seeking approval from the council for a land use thing.
Yeah, I didn't mean any of that,
Okay,
Frank.
okay, just want to make clear. Yeah.
Opportunity to speak in person.
yes.
We'll go with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the legalese.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and just postpone this item pending securing a date with Mr. Fowler.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Next up, item number 8. There was an agenda item request from council members Stroman and Walker to discuss changing the intersection at Mitchell and California from 2-way to 4-way. Who's
Thank
got
you.
this one?
Thank you, Mayor. So back in August, Councilmember Stroman had reached out to staff and shared that at the National Night Out event, a group of neighbors inquired what the process would be for them to change the intersection of Mitchell and California from a two-way stop to a four-way stop, noting that there had been many near misses and that this area is problematic during drop-off and pickup times for the Dent Elementary School families. Staff followed up on this item by, and this is the area that we had to update, having the police department place the speed trailer out to collect data for California Street, both eastbound and westbound traffic for a 28-day period, which was August 12th through September 9th, 14 days each westbound and eastbound area. And then the police department did run an incident history report, and that report indicated that this area received a typical number of complaints compared to the rest of the city, and that there were 3 incidents involving reports of reckless or erratic driving since July of 2001, and 6 other incidents since late 2000. Further, there was a total of 8 vehicle collisions since 2002. And then we also had our city engineer run a warrant analysis at this location, which is taking that information that's obtained from the speed trailer, as well as the incident information provided by the police department to do so. And so with that information, the details were that the average speed was 22 miles per hour, 41,866 total vehicle trips, or approximately 1,500 trips per day, or approximately 750 trips per day in each direction, and that there were the 8 vehicle collisions since 2002. The 4-way stop threshold is 300 trips per hour in each direction per the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Police, Public Works, and City Hall staff observed the intersection operations at drop-off and pickup times over multiple days. During these observations, staff found low speeds, low traffic volumes, and no near misses. Staff further researched the raised concern of near misses and how these may be factored into a decision to install further traffic controls. Staff found that though near misses have been widely considered, currently traffic engineering standards and analysis have not adopted near misses in the evaluation of an intersection meeting warrants because of the high degree of subjectivity involved with their identification. So at the council's direction, staff can either continue to monitor this location for unsafe travel habits or issues with the intersection design, or we can meet with residents in the area and school officials to determine if there's more that can be done to improve the overall traveler comfort of this intersection. And we do have our city engineer, Bill Cole, in the audience as well, if there's any other questions, and all of our staff's present to discuss this information and this item with you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
In the last paragraph, what happened to the request for stop signs? I mean, we have two directions, but isn't there a third possibility here of possibly making it a 2-way to a 4-way stop sign?
Sure, I mean, and that's at council's direction,
Okay.
yeah. So that's whatever council desires at this point in time. As staff, we looked into this matter. We put out the speed trailer, which is something we've been doing since we obtained it. If anybody complains about speeding, we've been putting the speed trailer out to identify and collect that data. And then using that data, we run analysis and make determinations. And so if council at any time wishes to do something different, just let us know.
Can I provide some thoughts, Mr. Mayor?
What's that?
Can I provide some thoughts?
Sure.
So I appreciate the data that was presented before us. However, in this particular instance, there is scientific data versus reality. And in fact, 2 of the gentlemen that approached me are in the audience tonight during National Night Out. And they live there. They see the realities of the intersection between on Mitchell and California. I know we cannot quantify near misses, but at least once a week, after I drop my son off at school, that intersection is problematic. And I understand that, you know, we have We need, what's the calculation? 300 trips per hour to meet the threshold for California manual uniform traffic control devices. Totally get that scientific data. But the reality is, this is obviously a concern that was brought up by our residents. And I think that what we have here is, I mean, I can't really identify what intersection in our city has that threshold of 300 trips per hour. I mean, maybe on 120, but not any of the side streets. And I understand that there's a concern that if we make this a four-way stop sign, that it may give folks a certain false sense of relief. I mean, that was one of the arguments that was brought up when we were talking about a stop sign on Deborah Circle. But the residents didn't really feel like this was an issue. They wouldn't have brought it up in the first place. And so I think this is an opportunity where we as a council can say we appreciate the information, the scientific data, but our job as council is to listen to our residents. A few years ago, a similar situation, almost directly the same as this, was brought up at Stanislaus North. And so the residents at Stanislaus North said, it's a dangerous intersection. There are kids that are crossing across there for the high school. We request that you make this a three-way stop sign. Similar situation, we had all the scientific data, but at that time, council decided to say, okay, we understand the scientific data, but this is something that's brought up by our residents. So my only request to the entire council is, and like I said, I know we have some residents in the audience this evening. My request is that the council as a whole take into consideration the scientific data, but also be respectful of the neighbors because they live there. That's it.
I have some questions with that thought process due to the fact that I can tell you as soon as we open this door, we have to be very careful because a neighborhood wants a stop sign, we will put them on every corner in the whole city. That's the problem with disregarding scientific information and code that we basically have. So that's a slippery slope to just decide to throw that out. We're talking the threshold, we're at, I'm gonna argue based on quick math, about 10% of the level of what it takes to meet the threshold with the number of trips in that intersection. And then the next question I have, is it truly, with those trips, is it localized to drop off and pickup times only? What's that intersection look like on the other hours of the day for the other 22, 23 hours of the day? There's more data that I need to see myself if we're gonna consider this, because if it's only for an hour a day, I'm not sure that we're gonna be putting stop signs all over the town. I'm concerned with that.
Quick question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. In the Deborah Circle situation, there was a legal reason, if I remember correctly, that as to why we couldn't put something there.
Correct.
Is there some legal handcuff that I'm not aware of for something here?
So it's the same idea. It's through the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a Caltrans document, and it establishes warrants, whether it's warranted or not. And at the last,
But wasn't it like a distance issue?
our attorney went into specifics on that.
From the original stop sign to the next stop sign or something?
Yeah, there's a criteria that is listed in that document that we run the analysis on, and we do have our city engineer in the audience if you'd like to have him go into more detail on that. But that was what was used to review the data that was submitted, and so it did come up as not warranted in association with that document. But that doesn't mean, as the council, that you can't go against the not warranted and do something like that. But as staff, we just run that data, provide you that information, and give you that determination in accordance with this.
Like, I guess in that particular situation, we're talking about putting in yield signs or slow signs or having kid crossing signs, things that caught the visual eye of someone coming through that area.
And that's also related to that item, we're also going to continue to monitor. I think we're waiting till after McDonald's is open and kind of everything's flowing before we'll go back and reassess that area since the area will be changed.
But those were things that we could put in that wouldn't put us in a legal bind, right? Correct?
Yeah, let me just try to laser guide to what I think you're getting at. When we had the discussion about Deborah Circle, the issue was traffic control devices proper. Traffic control devices proper, which you need warrant under the California Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Notwithstanding that, the city has the ability to impose traffic calming measures. So traffic control devices versus traffic calming measures at locations to help deal with those safety concerns.
I guess that's what I was getting at,
Right.
is the traffic calming measures doesn't put us in a legal situation with the opposite side of the argument. Is that my understanding?
There's more discretion, I believe, with the traffic calming measures, yes.
But without having like an actual scientific thing to hang your hat on,
Correct.
it can put us in a potential legal situation with someone arguing the opposite side of what was being argued so far.
But to clarify, Mayor Pro Tem, the situation at Deborah Circle was completely different.
Well, yeah, it is, but
Situation.
I guess what I was trying to discern is, because obviously we don't want kids getting hit. I mean, that makes sense. But if we were to put something in there, what does that look like as far as causing a problem for us, like from the city standpoint? And so obviously listening to constituents is always the number one thing. We represent the people up here, but we also have to look at it from the standpoint of what can we put in there and get away with without necessarily creating a potential legal quagmire.
Yeah, I would just say generally, you want sound engineering studies to support the implementation of traffic control devices as a practice, as a best practice, because if there is accidents or injuries or things later, first thing the plaintiff's attorney is going to look to is what studies, what tech memos, what analyses were done. And if they find out that, well, city staff had recommended A, but the council chose B, and if the council actually had followed staff's recommendation, this injury wouldn't have happened, it would tend to support liability, especially if there's a standard manual on uniform traffic control devices that actually gives you the objective warrants for it. So I'm not trying to provide any sense of alarm or scare tactics. I'm just telling you, just very clinically speaking, that's like the first place the plaintiff's bar will go to when they're looking at an accident and see did the city follow the MUTCD or not. And the idea that, and because I've been in situations where we've litigated these issues, and the plaintiffs will, the assumption in this room is the more the safer. Well, what they will often argue is the more, if it's not warranted, will create tens of false sense of security for users of the roadway, whether drivers, bicycle riders, or pedestrians, especially if a lot of drivers are used to going that road and at certain times it's not peak and there's not many people used, they'll just blow right through it. But the users of the road now have, they may have a false sense of security because the stop sign's there. All I'm trying to say is, it's not always true that, and this is just as a litigator. I mean, I'm not even the engineer, but I just, on the other side of these claims, when you have somebody and it's a pretty bad injury, you're kind of talking about those are the issues that come up. So those are the things that the city has to be mindful of.
May I share some thoughts here? So going back to Mitchell and California here. In that neighborhood, coming off of the Highway 120, leading into that neighborhood, there are 3 roads that you can take to go into those neighborhoods, 2 of which lead directly to Dent Elementary School, one of which is Brayton and one of which is Mitchell. The other road that leads into that neighborhood is Elizabeth. So of those 3 roads, Brayton, Mitchell, and Elizabeth, Brayton and Elizabeth both have 4-way stops. They're both we're taking into consideration the traffic, the vehicle traffic. It's also pedestrian traffic, which we don't note here in any of the report. That is a way that kids do get to school as pedestrians, and not to mention that is a street that doesn't have sidewalks. So you have kids walking in streets, cars trying to dodge kids on Mitchell, and then them trying to cross on California, which does not have a stop sign. So the kids are trying to cross to go to Dent School, and then, of course, they're gonna slow down 22 miles an hour. That's fine. I understand those reports, but you have kids trying to cross. This is a major safety issue at this point. And I know that we're talking about the school. We also have 2 churches a block from this on each side. So we have one on the east side and one on the west side. So taking consideration on Sundays as well, that's gonna be the high traffic. So we're looking at a street that comes right off the highway. If you are a pedestrian going to school, you're gonna cut through from the behind Dubonni's. If you're gonna go from that neighborhood, you cut through, you go down Mitchell, you cross that street. And that's where you have a lot of pedestrian danger for the kids coming and going from school. Then you have the traffic because there are cars. That is a tight street. So you do have the cars parked there and everybody's kind of waiting to cross each other. I have lived in Escalon for 36 years at this point. That's always been a dangerous intersection, and we need to make sure that we're looking out for the people that are living in that neighborhood, because that is that's where people live. It's not like it's a commercial zone. That's where people live, that's where kids play, and that's where they go to school. So obviously, you can tell where I lean on this, but we need to just consider more than just this data from all the reports, but you have to observe what the subjective data is when you're taking a look at how this is operating in our city and how the pedestrian traffic is working, as well as the car traffic in this area.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against the idea of it. What I'm trying to figure out is it gonna put us in a position where we're in a lawsuit for trying to do what's right?
Well, and I understand that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
So how do you word that? In other words,
Well, I'm trying to see that how does Brayton, Elizabeth, and then also Justin, which is a 4-way stop that doesn't have a thoroughway from 120, how do those have 4-way stops? How are we saying those deserve 4-way stops, but Mitchell does not deserve a 4-way stop? And that's where it's getting through to me. How does Justin have a 4-way stop if Brayton can't have a 4-way stop? I just have a hard time understanding the rationale, right?
can we ask the engineer that
I would
question?
love to ask the engineer.
The engineer
That
can
sounds
I'm
great.
sorry it's a loaded question, but basically.
Work through your process of what was provided in the data there.
Why is there, what she's saying is logical as far as why is there 4-way stops all the way along that road, but there isn't at that particular intersection? Is there a reason for that, or?
Yeah, so council, Bill Cole, city engineer, thank you for letting me make the presentation. So there are some other stops on California Avenue, as you've talked about there. And one's 450 feet away, the other one's 750 feet away. A pedestrian could certainly navigate to one of those other crossings if that's what they needed to do, is to cross at a 4-way stop. What we're looking at when we look at stop signs is not just to sprinkle them through the city wherever anybody wants one, because as the mayor said, everybody's gonna want one. They're gonna want more and more. What we have to do is we have to follow the manual that we've talked about. And the manual just doesn't talk about speed. It talks about an engineering study that needs to be completed for the stop sign. And one of the criteria in the manual is that if this is going to be a signalized intersection at some point in the future, traffic lights, that sort of thing, then the temporary 4-way stop can go in place until the signal's put in place. That's not the case. We're not anticipating a signal there. The second criteria is the crash record. 8 crashes in 21 years seems very small. And we didn't see any evidence of vehicle versus pedestrian or vehicle versus bicycle. So the criteria is 5 accidents in a 12-month period, and here we have 8 in 20 years. So
A quick question on that.
we don't meet that element of the warranty there. And then they're talking about volume. So the 300 trips down the street at a peak hour. So this morning I sat out there at the peak hour from 7:30 to 8:30, monitoring traffic. We had 162 vehicles total going through that intersection, which is far less than the 300 that's required by the MUTCD. There were 7 pedestrians. 2 or 3 of them were not actually going towards Dent. They were headed toward the high school, but they were walking. There was 1 bicyclist, and then 2 of the other trips were parents that are walking their kids to Dent, and then the parent walking back. So we didn't observe a lot of pedestrian conflicts at that intersection this morning. And then the other criteria is that there's a sight distance problem. If somebody coming up to that intersection can't see either the oncoming traffic or their vision is blocked in one direction or the other, and a stop sign would bring them to a complete stop so that they could visualize the other vehicles. That's not the case. They're fairly wide streets. The landscaping's back. There's nothing that really blocks the view. So of all of the criteria that is established by the manual for installing a 4-way stop, we aren't meeting any of them, other than the fact that we want to protect children and we want to protect, vehicles. So for safety, I understand that, but it's just not meeting the traffic law.
Can I ask?
And may I ask,
sorry.
then the 2 stop signs on either side, so one on Justin in California and then one on Brayton in California, you would say that those do meet the criteria and this does not meet the criteria?
I can't
Is
say
that our
We
argument?
didn't analyze that one. We didn't analyze that intersection. But when you have a stop sign already 450 feet away and then another one 750 feet away, you're stopping traffic more than you need to. And the more that you stop these vehicles, the more they roll them, the more that they accelerate further to make up for their stop time.
Well, Sergeant Hardgraves made a comment that he has to boost up his ticket count, so I'm kidding. So actually, Mayor Pro Tem had some questions for you, Bill.
I just had one quick question. These criteria that you're using, are they based like on a per capita? Like, what's it relative to? Because like every city is obviously different as far as the density of people.
Right. It's not at all. It's a statewide and federal requirements that are established. So there's the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control, which is a federal document, FHWA, the Highway Association. California adopts a very similar one, and that's the California MUTCD. So they're both the same, and they're not based on volumes. There are factors that go into account if the speeds are higher, if it's a 40 mile an hour road, if it's a 60 mile an hour road, there's reductions in the volumes required, but that's not the case here. This is all 25 mile an hour zone with 22 mile an hour average speed.
So, thank you.
So Bill, Chief's got something to say here. Hold on just a second.
Sergeant.
Sergeant, sorry.
Quick question. So she does bring up a very valid point about the stop sign at Justin and California. Is there any type of difference in determination on existing stops versus new stops? Like as far as when you're putting in a new subdivision where you're putting 4-way stops, how do they make those determinations as far as if the warrants to dictate a certain volume of traffic, if you have a new subdivision, how do they determine where a stop sign is going to go?
Sure, on new subdivisions, obviously there's no traffic volumes ahead of time to know what the volumes are going to be. They can be estimated. Typically, the traffic engineer on the project would make a recommendation for stop signs, and typically the designers follow that.
Could that be how the Justin in California one got put in and the one at?
I'm just speculating. Don't know. Yeah.
So Bill, I'm not questioning your judgment at all as the city engineer, but what streets in Escalon meet the 300 trips per hour threshold?
Again, we only analyzed this section because of this study. Okay. So I can't answer that question.
I personally think I'd like to hear from the people that live there, see what they have to say.
Before we open it up, can I get a chance real quick?
Please, yes.
Sorry about that. I've listened to everybody. There's a lot of things I agree with. I agree with the mayor. We open it up to one street. We're going to open it up to every street. We've heard several complaints. Next thing you know, Escalon's going to be full of speed humps and stop signs. Every street. I listened to what Frank said, and I agree with that. I agree that installation of a stop sign, whether it's a large or a small percentage, does put us at some risk for a potential future lawsuit. I also agree with our engineer that the data just doesn't show or warrant the need for a stop sign. All of us live here in town. We see that everybody speeds on almost every street nowadays. Stopping at stop signs, what's that? When's the last time you saw somebody take a full stop at one of our stop signs, right?
In a residential area?
Yeah, right?
Good point.
It's not happening. First Street, we're talking El Portal, I mean, we've had this discussion down there too, and the trailer was down there, and some findings, but you see that one car going down there all the time. I agree with what you said, Mr. Mayor, it is a slippery slope once we step outside of set boundaries and make exceptions. It opens the door to making exceptions for everybody. Good there, thank you.
So why,
A comparable four-way stop near El Portal would be like at Oklahoma and California. There's a four-way stop there. There's not 300 trips there, but that's right down the street from the school, and we have kids traveling to school. And that's why we have cars stopping, because there's neighborhoods, and we have kids, and we have people walking in our neighborhoods, because it's different. We're not numbers in Escalon. We're neighbors. We're not just a number. We're not just a data set here. We're looking out for each other, and we need to slow down traffic, because we do have people that walk more here than we do in our neighboring towns, because we're Escalon, because we're safe, because we're looking out for each other.
Well,
So, some are,
your argument that you have there would imply that the driver is also from Escalon and would be using their Escalonian values to drive. So it just doesn't make any sense. I hear what you're saying, and there is concern. I don't live there. I'm sure if there were cars going by quickly in front of my house, I would be complaining too.
so
If we accept that, it will go around town, and everybody who has a speeder in front of their house will be sitting here in front of us saying, I have people going fast in front of my house, I want a stop sign or speed humps.
So why are we saying as a council, it's good enough to protect the high school kids at Stanislaus North, but it's not good enough to protect the elementary students that go to and from Dent?
We're not saying that. We're not saying let's put one there and not put one there.
There is one there. There was one by the previous council that took the same data that we're looking at here, the exact same data, minus the radar
past
trailer.
council,
Let me finish, please. Let me finish. Took the same data that's here, minus the information that was provided by a radar trailer, and council directed staff to make that a three-way stop sign at Stanislaus North. So now what we're saying is we will protect the high school students, but we won't protect the elementary students. That's basically what we're saying, based off of scientific data. Now, I understand that this possibly puts the city at risk. However, the reality is, no offense to high school students, but they have their AirPods in. They're so oblivious to that traffic, they don't know what's going on. And if there, in my opinion, strictly my opinion, if there was gonna be an incident, there would have been an incident at Stanislaus and North a long time ago than what we're talking about here at Mitchell in California. Further, what I'm wondering, Bill, and you don't have to come back up, but what I'm wondering is if we made that a four-way stop sign and we actually painted a crosswalk, if it would actually improve pedestrian traffic to the elementary school. I don't know, and neither do you. I'm just purely speculating. So I'll shut up now.
I'd like to, just one more thing. Down on the far right, I appreciate your passion about the item. I do recognize that. I'm not trying to discredit your feelings or belief that there needs to be one there. I just wanted to throw that.
Let's hear from the folks that are in the there. Sergeant?
Just another thing real quick. You bring up the topic of pedestrian traffic, which does need to be, I think, factored in more. Because when you were just talking about stop signs for speed control, so studies show that increasing stop signs actually increases peak speeds between the stop signs. So you put a stop sign there, it's gonna slow traffic there, but it's gonna increase traffic between California, or between Mitchell and Brayton, and then between Mitchell and Justin is what the possibility is. And so if you're looking at it more of a pedestrian.
No,
crossing,
I'm looking at it from a safety issue
I get
the
the
whole way
safety
around.
issue, but when you're looking at stop signs for speed controls, those are part of the issues that are factored in. It is shown that stop signs can increase peak speeds between stop signs. So although it's gonna slow it down there, it could increase it outside of that. And so that's why there are other traffic calming measures outside of stop signs. As far as pedestrian traffic goes, you would want stop signs there to better facilitate pedestrian traffic, and I'm not sure how much that was looked at as far as that site, as far as needing better control for pedestrian traffic.
No, what-
It was always talked to me as far as they need to slow traffic down, and in order to slow traffic down, stop signs are not a preferred method.
No, my comment was, Bill noted that this morning he noticed 3 pedestrian traffic.
7.
Okay, 3, 7. My comment is that if there were painted crosswalk lines on California and on Mitchell, and that it becomes a 4-way intersection, maybe the pedestrian traffic, people walking from the other side of Mitchell would be more inclined to want to walk, because right now they're afraid to go through the intersection. That was my point.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, as far as make it more of a pedestrian crossing, and then we would possibly be able to better facilitate stop signs rather than just selling it as a traffic control or as a speed control measure.
Got it, understood.
Have there been any efforts for increased patrolling of that area during peak times? As you've heard today, you know, before and after school, church times, has there been more enforcement there to possibly work on, obviously, more tickets for the speeders out there with an average speed of 22? I'm not sure how many are speeding, but if there are out there, we didn't get the report that actually shows the exceptions and, you know, that we got the average. I don't know what the exceptions were. The other concern I have is, I want to ask the engineer, when you do these studies for the intersection, is there any consideration for the unintended consequences to the rest of the roads in the area? What a stop sign does and how it redirects traffic should somebody want to avoid that 4-way. If we put a 4-way there, what's a consideration? Is there anything in what you did that considered any of that kind of idea?
Well, as the sergeant mentioned, it's well documented that adding stop signs does increase speed, and it also tends to, it doesn't really solve a speed problem. And as far as how it's going to affect other streets and how it might redirect traffic, I don't really know. We didn't do that analysis, but it tends to. When vehicles wind up with too many stops on one street, they tend to go somewhere else. And if the goal is to really improve pedestrian and bicycle traffic through there, then we talked about additional sidewalks that would be necessary, because there's some crosswalks that we would have to install at these, and then the crosswalks don't really direct pedestrians into sidewalks. So Public Works has been working on a list of streets that the city's looking to improve the sidewalk and the pedestrian circulation near the schools, and there's some funding available with that. So maybe this can be addressed at a later time when sidewalks are installed that will allow pedestrian traffic to continue to move through the intersection as well as onto sidewalks safely.
So,
Good point.
okay, I just want to say one last thing, and then it's important that we hear from the neighbors. But I don't know if this council is aware, but the pickup and drop off at Dent is going to become significantly more challenging come August. So now, the new plans with the 2 new school buildings, the drop off is directly off of Mitchell. And so, which means the sheer volume of traffic going on Mitchell from 120 is going to be exponentially more. So while we have this data today, I bet you if we went back and we did an analysis at the start of next school year, it's going to get even more crazy because of the rerouting of the drop-off for the new school buildings. Because most of the traffic used to come down Yosemite for that drop-off. That's now all abandoned, and the main drop-off areas for the school, both at the primary grades and the fourth and fifth graders, are directly off of Mitchell, which means the volume of cars is going to go way up.
Sure.
So-
Understood. And maybe the student pedestrian traffic would increase with warmer weather when it's 52 degrees out. Not a lot of kids are, elementary school kids are walking on their own. But maybe in summertime
Or April.
or early spring, they may be. So
September.
those are all good things to consider, and I think maybe this intersection needs to be evaluated, as time goes on.
Let's go ahead and hear from those folks in the audience here that would like to come to the podium and speak. Any of the residents or other folks in the town?
I'll go first. This is a tense meeting. All right. Hi, I'm with my glasses on. My name is Renee Snow. I live at 2125 California Street. I live right next door to the Escalon Reformed Church. We've been there about 6 years. And coming from the neighborhood on Jessica Circle, this street is definitely much busier. One of the biggest issues I've seen is people driving through Mitchell and the California intersection. It's a two-way stop, and there's like a speed bump in the road. So I have seen on several occasions vehicles catching air. Once I witnessed a high schooler do it. He was unfortunate in this situation because I recognized him and I was able to call his parents. It's been almost—
That's Escalon.
Exactly, and I'm the taco lady, so I it's been almost 3 years and this kid is still scared to look me in the eye. But you know what, if it saved it, it's fine. As our town grows, it won't always be the situation where I can call somebody's parents. I'm asking the city to change the intersection to a four-way stop. The amount of traffic and kids walking on that street becomes busy during drop-off pickup hours. There's also the issue of no crosswalk for the children as they walk home, and definitely there's no sidewalks on that entire street. Having cars stop in all four directions will help avoid a terrible catastrophe of a pedestrian being hit. There's a deputy with the Santa Claus County Sheriff's Department who lives on the corner, who specializes in traffic safety, and he has witnessed numerous times where people and vehicles have almost been hit. And to say that we would have to add a stop sign to every corner, the traffic that comes off the 120 to get onto the residential area, like you said, it all comes on those streets right there. And making the left in front of, off of Elizabeth to turn onto Mitchell, I see it all the time, just up and down traffic. A speed bump was added on Yosemite, and I don't really see a lot of speed bumps on every street. And if people are asking for a stop sign on every corner to watch speeders, how many of those streets have schools nearby? There's only, the schools that we have here in town, there's not that many. I have listened to, what I had written down, and then listening to what the city attorney and to what he said made valid points. But, I definitely don't want us to be opened up to a lawsuit, or our city to be open to a lawsuit if, we didn't have it at the right feet and all that. I don't know all of that stuff. Again, it's more of a personal thing. The kids, the people, me, myself, my dog's outside, that was always a holding my breath or my dog's gonna run out in the street. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And can I ask you a quick question? Is that all right?
Please.
Oh, sorry. So would you be amenable to the idea of traffic mitigation in the time frame? What I'm thinking is we obviously have to put sidewalks in there. So during the time frame that they're assessing the sidewalks and stuff, if we put traffic mitigation measures in, slow signs, those kind of things, would you be amenable to that thought to see how does that go?
Are you asking me about having the signs that tell people the speed as they're driving by?
Oh, yeah, tell them to speed, you mean?
I don't know what you mean when you say.
Oh, slow signs. So you know how it has
slow down, you're coming into a school zone or something
Yeah,
like
exactly, caution, slow, little kids with the,
Things, yes.
I guess the adult holding the kid, that kind of stuff.
I mean, definitely I think anything of safety is gonna be there, especially because with the church right there, Ripon Christian does a drop off and a pickup there where there are buses, where luckily I've seen that people have been respectful in stopping. But I mean, there's maybe that people that don't know that there's a school a block and a half up. So anything I think is gonna help the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, my name's Lester, and I live 2 houses from the cross street. And I moved in there about 15 years ago, and right away I seen a near wreck because for some reason, that corner, everybody, or people who aren't familiar with it, think there should be a four-way stop there, and other people pull out in front of them. And it's just like, it's a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, I've always said that's the most dangerous corner in Escalon by far. And as far as cars going faster because there's another stop sign, baloney. The distance in between those two is not enough for them to get up as much speed as they're doing. I've seen them go through their 60, 70 miles an hour. I mean, that's mostly at nighttime, but at least the stop sign, they will slow down. Because I was a kid too, and I know when you seen a stop sign, you slowed down because you were always scared there was a policeman around someplace. So anyway, it's way past due. And I mean, I've seen so many near misses there and so many kids, and now even the parents that are dropping off at Dent, the road is full, so they're hanging out into California. And at least a stop sign there might prevent a wreck there too, because it's like, and it's gonna get worse, so I hear. So it's, when there gets more traffic, it's, slower the better on that street, because it's gonna be, there's gonna be blood on somebody's hands, and it's a sad thing, I hate to say that, but that's what's gonna come down to eventually. Thank you.
This lady here, I saw, I live on that street too. I saw people getting airborne off of that road, and they're always going east. You guys put your sign close to the west side of that road, by the stop sign. People see it a mile away, it says slow down. But when that doesn't have slow down on it, see what happens. You're gonna see a whole different ballgame. The road is wider on that side of the road. It's narrower where we're at. I have my mirror ripped off by a car. They see wide open down there. They hit 70 miles an hour and take that little jump. I've seen them all four wheels off the ground 2 or 3 times. I chased one of them down, wrote down his license plate, gave it to the cop, because he stopped and ate, had lemonade from a kid across the street who had a lemonade stand. And it's ridiculous. It was a F-150 4x4. He got air completely. And that bump alone is going to make somebody lose control and end up in a house. And there are no sidewalks on that side. So nobody walks that. Everybody drives their kid to school. Very few walk. The walking is taking place on the weekends when everybody's out just strolling around on a nice day. That's when all the walking is done. So, and does your data say, you know, when a road gets narrower, you should put a stop sign there? Probably should. You probably should. I'm done.
Anybody else in the audience like to speak on this? Bring it back to council on.
I did receive a public comment via email.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jamie Lewick. Also Greer, both last names are listed. A resident living on Mitchell Avenue. I support making California Mitchell Avenue crossing a 4-way stop. Having 2 young children, it is a dangerous intersection to cross during bike rides and family walks. In the near future, when my son attends Dent, I would feel much better knowing he would have access to a crosswalk at California Street when walking to school each day. Thank you for your time.
All right, back to council here. Thoughts, considerations, ideas. What do we got?
Well, the one concern I have is the lack of sidewalks that was brought up. That's something that, if you put a 4-way stop in, we're gonna have to correct that. So I don't know, I guess Public Works, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's sidewalks and 88 ramps. There's a little bit that would have to go into it in order to meet that, definitely.
and we have the funds to do that?
I would have to look into it, but I'd have to look into that and see.
Okay. 'Cause
That would only close, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
Just real quick for the sidewalks, that's just for the corner with the ADA and the bumps and that's where it begins and ends with what we can do.
Correct. Well,
With the
then,
current moment.
then as far as you want to take the sidewalk, if you're wanting to take the sidewalk from that corner of Metro and California ADA and carry that sidewalk all the way onto the school, then that's in your discretion how far to take that.
So I
Because
think,
again, you don't really want to put ADA ramp sidewalk, lead them into somebody's yard. You want that sidewalk to either lead to another intersection where there's another ADA ramp or to wherever their final destination may be.
Right, which creates a problem.
so folks, I think we look at this kind of as multi-phased. What if we do stop signs and then work with staff and work with our partners at the school district and see if there are state safe routes to schools funding that may help the city and the school district for crosswalks and sidewalks so that there is a safe route to school. But in the meantime, we immediately address the concern with stop signs. So looking at it as a multi-phase project. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, this does seem to me like one of those, letter of the law versus spirit of the law, so to speak, type scenarios is kind of what I'm thinking.
I'd like to see some mitigation efforts done first before we put a four-way in myself, so we don't get ourselves in trouble with instantly putting a stop sign in. We talk about whatever we can do with the engineer and the city public works and see what we can do for possible mitigation in that, and also monitor that with our police force, and then as far as enforcement, as well as obviously coming into next school year with change in route, what that looks like. Because obviously between now and then, we're gonna have to deal with trying to figure out a budget for sidewalk. We don't have that.
Mr.
To
Mayor,
make a budget all the way through, in my
as
opinion.
far as mitigations, what are you thinking? Like,
I'm gonna leave that to the engineer, and, kind of like we did with the Deborah Circle thing, what can we do?
like
That-
signage that says
Signage, I mean, I'm not
yield,
sure if
slow, that kind of stuff.
speed bump, I know when we redo streets around here for projects, when we're redoing sewer and water lines and whatnot throughout town, kind of like on Coley, all of a sudden we now have, was it 3 or 4
Two.
speed, is it just 2? I thought we had more than 2.
We have
Sorry.
3 in total.
Oh,
3 in total on
Two new
Coley?
ones.
No, 2 on Coley, 1 on
oh.
Yosemite.
Okay,
Oh, Yosemite.
so something along those lines of putting speed humps and signage and other mitigation, whatever seems appropriate that we're allowed to do as a first level step, and then go from there. I'm not necessarily in favor of just jumping to the stop sign as a first step.
So what,
That's just my
but
thoughts.
cost-wise, isn't a speed hump more costly than a stop sign?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily about a speed hump, but my feeling would be, putting in signage that says slow down, yield, those kind of things, while we're trying to see what's going on in the background as far as our sidewalks are concerned.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I don't think we have the funds to pay for sidewalks and crosswalks. I mean,
We don't have the funds now. This meeting is public record. The very first accident that happens at that intersection after any change puts us in harm's way. Anything we do there. Speed hump, there's an accident, they put a speed hump there, it was unwarranted. We put slow signs there, there's an accident, they put those slow signs there, they caused the accident. We put a stop sign there and there's an accident, they put the stop signs there, it was unwarranted, they're at fault, we're at risk for lawsuit. I understand your guys' concern in the neighborhood, and I feel for your situation, but it's our job up here to look out for the entire city. And a lawsuit of that magnitude would have impact for all of our citizens. My opinion is more law enforcement in that area, right? More monitoring, more presence, especially during those peak hours. I mean, I think that's a great place for us to start. That's gonna go a little off track, but that's for a lot of streets in town.
So
Like, tickets are a deterrent. I know we don't give a lot of tickets here, but when people start getting tickets, people start acting differently. And if I'm speeding, give me a ticket. Like, I did wrong.
Write it, yeah.
So I can agree with what you're saying. However, I can tell you that right now, there is no possibility to have an officer at that intersection because on those peak hours, because the resources, quite frankly, aren't available. I mean, at that time, Sergeant, we have 2 officers on duty, right? Correct. And so now, and two cars or one car?
Well, it depends on could be one car if we have an officer took the night off, or if we have a reserve working coverage. So sometimes it could be one car, sometimes it could be two.
So now you're taking that one officer and planting him at that corner.
Or if they have another call for service and they're not going to be able to monitor traffic there.
So I understand what you guys are saying about traffic mitigation, but, I mean, maybe we ask the engineer, if we can't do stop signs, what sort of mitigation measures would be appropriate at that intersection? Any thoughts?
I mean, maybe we have a sign put on there that just says cross traffic does not stop, so that vehicles coming up into that intersection will have a sign that is an MUTCD approved sign that just lets them know cross traffic doesn't stop. It's similar to what you see on four-way stop sometimes, where it says, you know, all-way stop kind of thing. There could be, I mean, the main thing is to try to get sidewalks, ADA ramps, crosswalks, safe routes built from this intersection to the school. And we're gonna have to look and see what our funding is like and how much sidewalk we can build, but we are building up a list of streets that we're anticipating moving forward with sidewalks and ramps.
And I understand that, but then it becomes a judgment call as far as what direction, how do we prioritize that list? And then,
certainly,
I mean, the reality is what we're talking about here is something might not be able to be, we might not have the funding for 4 or 5 years. And I mean, that's just reality.
Right.
And so,
and a worst situation would be to build this four-way stop and the stop bars and the crosswalks, and then direct people either back into the street or onto private property where they are back into the street anyway. So it doesn't achieve a goal until we meet these, you know, the sidewalk requirements.
I think it's hard on the spot, right, to come up with potential mitigation measures. We are exploring producing a traffic calming plan at the direction of the council. We can go back and kind of look at this with new light. These conversations are helpful. We have data, we did observations, that's a moment in time. It's helpful to hear the residents' lived experience. It's helpful to hear different perspectives at the direction of the council. If that's what the council chooses, we can go back, spend some time, and kind of relook at it in a different light and see if there's different measures, different things that we can do. But they're probably not going to pop in our heads right now. We need to look at it a little bit more broadly.
I mean, I think that we, you know, look into traffic mitigation measures myself, but you know, we can't go to the next level until we get these the actual sidewalks dealt with. It looks like that's a major pinch point. But in the meantime, we can at least put some sort of, you know, measures out there that mitigate the situation, you know, whether it's a cross sign, like you said, or some sort of slowing, you know, or recognition that, hey, there are children crossing here in some way. I don't see where that would be a major problem, but until we get the sidewalks there, you know, we're most likely going to have a concern as far as, like, you know, litigation type stuff. So I think that would be where I would stand on it. You know, some sort of mitigation, but not going to the stop sign step yet until we get those other things fixed.
Yes.
We already closed.
Microphone.
Their high peak area. Out during the high peak time, whatever. And I don't know what permission the school has from Antique or
I do think they do on actual Yosemite, where the school's located. This is a block down the street, a block down Mitchell is California Street, so it's, you know, it's removed from the school. But in front of Dent, I do believe that they have some of those at the crossings
They
there.
have two that were donated from Hogan, and they're hit all the time.
Yeah.
They're always getting repaired.
Yeah.
You guys got one of them smart
Okay.
no sidewalks and nothing.
Well,
Okay,
Yeah.
so are we here for a motion, or
Well, I'm-
are we looking to, what are we looking to do?
I'm supporting a four-way stop at Mitchell and California, and I will continue to support sidewalks being installed within a block of all the schools that are in the city, and that includes Dent Elementary School, El Portal Middle School, and the high school, should all have sidewalks within a block of them so that people can walk to school safely.
Is that a motion, or just?
That's not a motion, that's
Okay.
an
I mean,
opinion.
I would make a motion that we pursue traffic mitigation until we can adequately address the sidewalk issue.
Is our current motion on the table? Do we have a second for that?
Before, is that going to be decided through what staff is working on through their, you referred to it as a traffic control, traffic
Plan.
calming plan?
I think it would be part of it, yeah, part of it. I don't see why it would, because it would have to be logically, you know, it's going to be logically part of that.
So would the mitigation be dictated by completion of that traffic calming plan, and then whatever that traffic calming plan dictated, then it would fall onto this intersection?
What kind of time frame are you talking about with your plan?
We plan to go to the Planning Commission in January, and then, you know, probably council in February, if we get the green lights.
I'm not too far off then.
Not too far.
But guys, I think we need to be very specific. We need, if we're talking about looking
Hold on,
at.
hold on. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Or
I'd like to
or do
make
you wanna
a different motion. Can I make a
Are we-
Not yet.
separate
get it-
motion?
We have to move on the
We can
first
deal
motion
with any substitute motions or alternative motions if we get a second on the first. If we don't, then you can just make a main motion.
So we can't have discussion on the motion?
Hold on.
There has to be a second.
We have to have a second before we
I'm just
discuss.
trying to understand the motion first. before-
No, your question is fine. Once you get the clarification, though, we either need a second or,
Just so I can clarify the motion, I guess. The motion is to pursue traffic mitigation in that area, which is going to be part of the overall calming plan in general that we're looking to pursue anyways. And then reevaluating the need for a stop sign once we are able to secure the funds for a sidewalk.
So you, just one point of question, clarification, probably similar to yours, Councilman Engel. So we're not gonna be beholden to finishing the calming plan for the city before staff, engineering, and everything determine what we can implement sooner than that, if possible. Are we gonna wait for the calming plan first, or are we gonna, if they come up with some calming ideas between now and then, implement those?
I would be, I'm okay with implementing it as soon as you know you're able to do it.
Okay. I just
Because
wanna-
it would then, because it's going to become part of that plan regardless. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I just wanna be clear on that aspect of it for me.
Okay.
Does that work, answering your question, Councilman Engel, or did you?
Yeah, I'm confused, I'm sorry, I don't know what we're doing here. Are we,
I guess what I'm saying is, it's going to become part of the calming plan regardless, right? So,
is that true or not true?
well, if we implement it,
But the calming plan is a plan citywide. It doesn't address this specific need. That's the issue. It's just a plan, how to address
yeah, I guess what I'm
traffic
saying,
across the city.
I guess what I'm saying, it's going to be, this particular aspect of it, if it is passed, will be implemented as soon as we can implement it, I would say. But once it's implemented, it's obviously going to be put into the scope of the larger plan. Does that make sense?
hopefully I can clear this up a bit. The traffic calming plan outlines a process by which residents can raise areas of concerns and go through a city review process. It highlights the suite of traffic calming measure tools that are available and recommended by city staff, and it proposes a potential funding source. So it is not a comprehensive look at every traffic calming measure throughout the city.
So I would like to make a request. The Mayor Pro Tem is, actually to the entire council, is can we consider tabling this and ask staff to come back with some recommendations to us for traffic calming for this particular intersection? It sounds like you guys don't want stop signs, but I think it would help if we had some options that we can discuss as a council to consider, and then that would be the direction and then that would be going in parallel with the traffic calming plan, because the traffic calming plan is citywide. It doesn't address specific needs for specific intersections.
Well, I think that's what we'd be doing by passing. If we said yes to what I just said earlier, you would be then pursuing those options and then determining which option is the best one for our city.
Okay, so.
So I don't know if tabling is necessarily going to change that.
Okay, so if the traffic calming plan says speed bumps and speed bumps don't apply to that particular intersection, then how's it resolved? That's why I'm asking.
The traffic calming plan, per Jalen's explanation, doesn't impose anything. It looked like a way for residents to express their concerns, and then a way for a process for that to follow to get to an outcome. So it's not going to have defined outcomes.
Yeah.
Is that right? I see you nodding.
I think
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem's motion the second time around here was basically irrespective of what we do with a calming plan for traffic mitigation as a citywide. It was specific to having city staff, whether it's engineers, public works, and everybody else, get together on what can we do now and move forward with the options that we can to see what that does. And obviously, some of the things we may or may not do would be part of an option when we have other intersections under the calming plan.
I understand the concern about sidewalks, but the reality is, how many streets have we been complaining about sidewalks on for years? And the response we constantly get back is, we don't have the money, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. So if we're tabling this to wait until we get sidewalks, we're never gonna have the money. And so that, I guess that's my point is.
Well, I'm not saying, with all due respect, I'm not saying table it. What I was saying is we pursue traffic mitigation steps, which would mean signage or something that says clearly there's kids passing here, stuff like that. But we don't pursue the other stuff until we're in a better position to make an educated decision on that. Because we don't, in other words, we don't know what it would cost. We don't know if we have the money to do sidewalks, to be able to properly put together, what should be there in the long run. But we can at least take steps short-term that would at least slow down traffic potentially, or at least make drivers more aware of what's going on.
In my opinion, that's a stop sign can go in before sidewalks can go in. We don't need to wait until you have all of the money for all of the sidewalks to put in some stop signs.
Back to the motion.
At this point, I want to get back to the motion. We've got a motion without a second. We're arguing about a motion that doesn't have a second at this point.
Can I get clarification?
Trying to clarify with the motion.
One more part of the motion. So with your motion, are you saying you're giving them the rein to figure out what it is and then install it, or figure out what it is and then bring it back to us?
To bring it back to us so we can.
Make recommendations on traffic calming measures.
And we would make the ultimate.
I'll second that.
We would make the decision.
I don't know can we repeat what the motion is?
Well, I'll tell you what I heard, and you can tell me if that's correct.
Okay.
You made a motion to direct staff to look at traffic mitigation / calming, 'cause it's the same concept, traffic calming measures at this location, and explore that and bring back potential recommendations to the council.
Correct, yeah, so that we can hopefully install something there while we're exploring the other stuff deeper.
Like the stop signs or
The sidewalks, the
that kind
stop
of stuff.
signs,
Okay.
how does that, that interplay with that?
Okay.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table.
Is there a time frame when we can expect that? Recommendations be brought back?
Staff?
You think we'd have it by next meeting, or?
No.
Yeah.
All right. There's no way they can do that.
Thank you, Frank. So I always try to get it right, not get it fast. I think the best thing that we can do is work on it and provide frequent updates. So I think we can provide an update on kind of, what we're doing and what we're thinking about at every meeting. And that's not a blank check for us to take as long as possible. I mean, we will want to get this done like we did with Deborah Circle and other, First Street and other things that we've been looking at. We'll want to get it done quickly, but I don't want to, commit to a time frame now. I want to try to get it right.
Well, I mean, we're not talking years here.
No.
Okay, we're talking like months, weeks, months?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about,
Before the next.
Okay.
how about before the beginning of February?
I think that's a comfortable timeframe to have some recommendation.
No later than.
I'll start moving to this one.
Okay, are we making an amendment to a motion? That's up to you, Mayor Pro Tem, if we want to put a timeline on staff.
I think the timeline makes sense, to make sure
So-
that it's done in an appropriate period of time.
Come back with
Thinks
this
they can
item
do that
before
in
February.
January, okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
In a second?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the motion on the table. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay?
Carries 4-1. Next up, council communications and future agenda items. Mr. Stroman.
I think I've said enough tonight. I just wanted to say congratulations to our Citizens of the Month. Justin, I think you hit the nail on the head with the parade. It was crowded, very crowded. And the line for the taco lady was really long through the park. My in-laws were in town and they're like, "What's that long line for?" I said, "That's the taco lady."
Tacos and churros?
I had a churro mishap and I was stuck with 500 churros, so.
Oh, no.
No, uncooked, I can fix it.
Oh.
Oh, darn it.
Messed up and,
Oh.
we'll be having a churro party pretty soon.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Walker.
Yeah, I think we'll just, I'll just second Sean in saying how great it was at Christmas on Main. It was a huge turnout, a lot more than I've seen in a long time. It gives me hope for so many community members participating, coming out to our streets, to our parks, and continuing to come out, continue to volunteer, making this city happen. So appreciate it, and I think that's it for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Engel.
Is this our last meeting this year?
We have one more.
We'll have one on the 18th.
On the 18th?
Yeah.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm the same. It's already been said, the last two. Clearly, the Christmas on Main was a big hit compared to the years prior, so it was nice to see so many people out there enjoying their family and friends. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Echo the same sentiments. The Chamber of Commerce did a great job putting together the parade as usual. It was great weather for all of us to attend, well attended, great to see everybody out there. Hats off to the football team. I know they didn't quite make it to where they wanted to, but they put on a great season for us. Hats off to them for the efforts and everybody involved with that. That was a great thing. Outside of that, it is the holiday season. It gets crazier and crazier as we approach the holidays. Just be safe out there, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.